I still remember the taste of cold air on that Thanksgiving night, the same night my parents shoved my suitcase into my chest and told me to go live in the streets where you belong. They didn't know that the kid they threw out was the same man who had secretly built a tech empire worth $25 million, an empire I would soon use to expose their truth in front of the entire town. My name is Elliot Crane, and the night my parents disowned me was the night I learned blood isn't thicker. Truth is, I stood at the end of their driveway, suitcase wheels stuck in the mud, the front door slamming so hard the glass rattled. It wasn't the kind of slam that ended an argument. It was the kind that ended a relationship, permanently. Inside, I heard them laughing, as if throwing out their own son on a holiday was a casual after-dinner activity. I walked down the street, breath shaking, hands numb, mind burning, not because I had nowhere to go. No, I had a penthouse in downtown Seattle with floor-to-ceiling windows and a private elevator. I wasn't homeless. I was just finally free. But that night wasn't about money. It was about something much colder, a truth my parents never expected me to discover. I didn't grow up poor. I grew up invisible. My parents, Miriam and Douglas Crane, worshipped my younger brother Caleb as if he were royalty. And me, I was the backup, the spare, the if he fails we still have one good son child. Caleb got celebrations for getting a parking ticket. I got silence for winning scholarships. But I never complained, because complaining meant punishment. So I grew quiet. Not weak, quiet. At 17, I left home to build something of my own. They didn't bother to call for years. Not once. Until 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. My mother's voice sounded sweet. Too sweet. Elliot, darling. We'd love to have you home for Thanksgiving. It's been too long. I should have known. Sweetness was never free in that house. Sweetness always meant someone else was about to bleed. Still, I went. Not for them, but because sometimes the only way to bury a ghost is to stand in front of it. When I arrived, Caleb opened the door wearing a smug smile, and a watch worth more than his car. Look who crawled back, he said. Still pretending you're doing something with your life? I nearly laughed. If only he knew. My business, Ravenbite Innovations, had just closed its biggest cybersecurity contract, pushing my valuation to $25 million. But I didn't say a word. Silence is the sharpest weapon. Inside, the house hadn't changed. Still filled with expensive furniture, paid for by my grandparents' inheritance, the inheritance I was cut out of, because I didn't show enough family loyalty. Dinner started cold. Conversation started colder. My father didn't even look at me when he said, "So, Elliot, still job hopping? Still drifting?" I shrugged. "It's going okay." Caleb snorted. "So basically no accomplishments." "Got it." I sat still. Patience is underrated, especially when people are digging their own graves. But then the conversation shifted, and suddenly everything made sense. My mom leaned over the table, fake pity in her eyes. "We're thinking of refinancing the house," she said. "But the bank needs your signature too." My brows lifted. "Why mine?" She smiled thinly. "Because technically, your grandparents left the house to you and Caleb jointly." Left. To me. The same grandparents they told me left me nothing. The same grandparents whose funerals I wasn't invited to. A fire lit in my chest. "So you want my signature?" I said, voice steady. "For a loan? You plan to use for Caleb?" My father finally turned toward me. His eyes were sharp, impatient. "Don't make this difficult. Sign the papers. Be useful for once." There it was. The real reason I was invited. Not love. Not reconciliation. Not family. Money. I leaned back in my chair. No. The word was soft, but the room shook. My mother's fork clattered onto her plate. Caleb's face reddened. My father stood so abruptly his chair screeched. "You ungrateful brat," he snapped. "If you won't help your family—" "Family?" I laughed. "Since when?" As when my mother said it. The sentence that burned itself into my bones. "If you won't sign, Elliot, then go live in the streets. We don't need you." And then my father grabbed my suitcase, already pre-packed by them, and shoved it into my chest. "Get out," he said, "and don't come back until you learn respect." Respect from people who spent their whole lives disrespecting me. I walked out without looking back. The cold air felt warmer than their house ever had. But as I left, I heard a whisper, Caleb's voice through the cracked window. "He'll sign eventually. He's got nothing. Where else will he go?" I smiled. In 3 weeks, they would learn exactly where I went and exactly who I had become. Because 3 weeks later, Forbes published the annual Top 30 Under 30 list, and my picture was the first one on it. Valuation, $300,000. Position, founder and CEO. The town exploded in gossip. Neighbors talked. Relatives called them. People who once praised Caleb suddenly remembered my name. And my parents were drowning in humiliation, but that was only the beginning. Because that same week, I received a letter from the county clerk, one that revealed my parents' worst secret. The house, the inheritance, the property, it all belonged to me, not jointly, not split, me. My grandparents left everything exclusively to me, because they suspected my parents were manipulating financial documents. And they were right. I now had the evidence. All of it. 3 weeks after being kicked out, I returned to town, not as the outcast son, but as the legal owner of the house they were living in. I walked out of the Thanksgiving table that night with nothing but a backpack, yet carrying a storm inside me. The words, "Go live in the streets," kept echoing every time the cold wind slapped my face, and something deep inside whispered, "Good, let them watch what the streets make of you." My name is Evan Mercer, and this is where the real shift began. The motel room I rented that night smelled like rusted pipes and forgotten dreams, but I sat on that squeaky mattress and opened my laptop like it was a loaded weapon. For 3 weeks, I didn't step outside except for instant noodles and coffee. Code, pitch, call, build, repeat. My AI-driven logistics model wasn't just a business idea now, it was my hunt, my revenge, my home when my own family rejected me. On the 6th day, investors replied. On the 8th, a VC firm sent an NDA. On the 12th, I got my first offer. And on the 19th day, the world flipped. "Evan, are you available for a quick call? Forbes wants to feature your valuation jump." I froze. Forbes? Now, when my parents assumed I was sleeping on pavement, the call lasted 14 minutes. But the article hit the internet like a grenade. Young founders startup hits 25 million valuation in just 3 weeks. My face, my company, my signature, everywhere. My phone vibrated so violently it almost slid off the motel desk. Unknown number, then another, and another. My parents, my sister, relatives, people who never said my name without an insult. I didn't answer a single one. But then, a message popped up. "Dad, Evan, come home. We need to talk." 3 weeks ago, he told me to go live in the streets. Now he wanted me in his living room like a collectible trophy. I stared at that message for a long minute, and then typed, "Sure, not forgiveness, not weakness, strategy." I arrived at the house I once called home. Same porch lights, same flower pots, same door that shut in my face 3 weeks earlier. But this time, I wore a black tailored coat and stepped out of a chauffeured black SUV. Dad opened the door too fast, like he was afraid I'd vanish before he could grab me. "Evan, son, you look prosperous." Prosperous? Funny how love grows when numbers rise. Mom appeared behind him, smile trembling with guilt. My sister hovered near the staircase like an anxious shadow. The whole house smelled like staged affection. My father gestured to the dining table, the same place they humiliated me during Thanksgiving. "Sit, son. We cooked your favorite." I scanned the plates. Not a single dish was anything I actually liked. They didn't even remember. Dad cleared his throat. We didn't mean what we said that night. We were frustrated. You know how families say things. I leaned back, hands folded. "You told me to live in the streets." Silence cracked through the room. Mom stepped forward. "We didn't know you were doing something important. If you had told us." I cut her off. "I did, repeatedly. You laughed." My sister looked down. "Good." She remembered. Dad forced a smile too tight to be genuine. "Listen, Evan, we want to fix things. And maybe you could let us help with the business? You know, as family." There it was. The true reason, the real hunger, money. I spoke slowly, each word sharp as glass. "You threw me out during a holiday dinner. You mocked my work. You told me I was nothing." Dad gulped. "And now," I continued, "you want to be part of something you tried to kill before it breathed?" Mom started crying. My sister whispered, "Evan, please, just let them in. They're trying." "Trying?" I leaned forward. "No, they're begging." Dad slammed his palm on the table. "We're your parents. You owe us respect." Finally, his real face. I stood up slowly, pushing the chair back with calm precision. "Owe you?" "I owe you nothing." Mom covered her mouth. My sister gasped. Dad pointed at me with shaking anger. "If you walk out now, don't come back again." I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't touch the eyes. "You already kicked me out. This time I'm choosing it." I headed toward the door. When my hand touched the knob, my sister whispered, "Evan, what changed you?" I didn't turn around. "The streets you pushed me toward built a man you can't control." Outside, the cold air felt different. Not cruel, but clean. My driver opened the SUV door. "Where to, sir?" "Home," I said. Not the house I came from, the life I built myself. Before stepping in, I checked my phone. Another message from Dad appeared. "We made a mistake. Please don't leave us behind." I typed one last line. "You left me first. Send." As the SUV rolled away, the view of my parents' house shrank in the mirror. And for the first time, it didn't hurt. I wasn't the kid they abandoned anymore. I was the man they underestimated. And the world finally knew my name, Evan Mercer. The boy they pushed out became the man they could never catch again.